Well, hello everybody. It's about 11:56, so I thought I'd shoot one. So this technically counts as. So technically, this is going to count as today's vlog. So today is hello everybody. Here I am, your humble host Mike Mo, here for the daily log here for Tuesday the 24th, 2026. Hello everybody, and welcome to another one of these and another day in my life. I haven't said that in a while because I used to say that during the vlog corner days or the and everything like that. So I hope you guys stayed safe during the snowstorm. I hear we're supposed to get some more tomorrow. Hopefully it's just in and out and we can enjoy some decent weather. But yeah, hello, and I hope you guys did this. So I'm gonna do some automotive news. So I'm not gonna look at it on my phone. I have to do something else. Um, so um, so I just want to let everybody know that thank you for all the views. I think we have over like 100 plus this month, and I think we have. I think after today we have like 3 more days left. I think because the 28th is on. So I think the 28th is Friday, and I think. Well, I think the. Well, today's the 20. Well, tomorrow's the 25th. The 26th is Thursday. Then the 27th is Friday, and then the 28th is Saturday. And then Sunday is going to be the first. So Sunday is going to be the last vlog day for February. So um, you know, it's had its ups and downs and all arounds. So I hope you guys are in. Hope you guys are in for a nice little ride because I'm gonna have some really good fun. I just wanted to touch on a couple of things. Um, um, so um, there's a couple of things that are going to be entering the so NASCAR racing is in full swing. They had the dual race, which I watched, and then the open race, and then they had the duels, which I watched one of the duels. I watched most of the Daytona, some of the Daytona 500, and then I ended up watching. Didn't end up watching any of the race for um, Atlanta Motor Speedway because I'm definitely going to be watching NASCAR this weekend. NASCAR also has a companion in IndyCar this weekend that's going to be running on Saturday afternoon. So that's going to be vying for my attention um, on Sunday. So, and it's going to be an interesting Indy season. So this will be the second full season. So this will be the first full season of them with the hybrids, and um, I think one thing that we learned from last year is that the hybrid system really didn't make a difference at the. Just want to talk about a history of engines with people with IMSA and the Indy 500. So for those of you who don't know, IndyCar or Champ Car used to be pretty open in terms of At one point, Indy or Champ Car used to have a pretty open roll set, so it wasn't all um, it wasn't all the same motors and stuff like that. So they had um, so if you know so if so Indy had a so Indy used to have a bunch of different rules. Um, typically in the past, if your engine was turbocharged, you'd um, have a small displacement. If you were non-turbocharged, you had a bigger displacement. Um, I think when the Indy 500 was first formed, most of the engines were 500 cubic inches plus because um, no one really understood turbocharging back then. Turbocharging wouldn't become mainstream till, or supercharging wouldn't really become. I'm going to say supercharging probably started in the 20s. Turbocharging really didn't really come on around till the 40s or 50s, um, 50s or 60s ish when they did that because supercharging really didn't start until um, really didn't start till I think the first engine to be supercharged at the Brickyard was um, I think the first turbo car was a first turbocharged car. I think it was a turbo diesel by the Delatraz guys from Sweden, and um, I think that was 1949 and 50. And I think Bobby Unser did the Novi um, at one point. So did the Novi at one point. So um, Novi at some point. And if you guys want to know what the Novi sounds like, it doesn't sound like anything. It sounds like nothing else. So, um, but you fast forward to the '60s, where it was all about big displacement versus turbo, and field displacement versus turbo, and you had the recipe for a decent. Um, so I don't think Offenhauser's really got turbocharged until I don't think it was until the mid-engine. I think some of the Offenhausers might have been turbocharged, but it wasn't until the mid-engine revolution in like the 1965, 1968, right in there when everybody started going to mid-engine roadsters, that that they started to they started to sit there and go, well, we can get more out of an engine if we turbocharge it, and that ended up being. And the cars back then really didn't have 500-600 horsepower. The most people had, I think, back in the late '60s might have been 550, 500, 520, 550, especially the Eagles. The Eagles that had it. The Eagles used to the Dan Gurney's Eagles had a lot of turbocharging back then, and to win, you kind of had to have a turbo. You kind of had to have a turbocharger on your car. Um, I think after 1966, 1967, I think everybody started to really use turbos. And after that, I think it was either Offenhauser or Ford that would run it, or Foyt, because AJ Foyt used to run his own turbo, Offenhausers and Ford. And Gurney used to use Offenhauser 2.6. Um, McLaren used to use Offenhauser because they didn't have their own engine, and it was a 2.6 4 liter engine. Yeah, a 4-cylinder engine made over. Yeah, these 4-cylinder engines were making well over 800 horsepower by the mid 70s. And then during the gas crisis, that obviously went down. In the 80s, that sort of stayed the way. I mean, and then 79, it was mostly Offenhauser, Buick, or um, because back in the way back when, if you wanted a horsepower difference but you didn't want to do it, you could run a stock block Chevrolet or a Ford or something like that, and they had those stock block rules, and for people who didn't have a heck of a lot of money and um, didn't have a heck of a lot of money, and they would allow people to run a stock block, and those were just for people who just wanted to be in the race and just didn't have a hot foot. They could get an off-the-shelf engine and stuff like that. Gurney, I know, did that in the 70s, in the early 70s, but I think early 70s on, most people used turbocharged engines, and usually they did an off-the-shelf, or they did one where they could uh, they could run it at a reasonable cost, and because not a lot of people had the kind of money like that, um, and then a lot of people were kind of in the weeds about that sort of thing, and a lot of people um, moan how spec these were. In order to win, you needed a in order to win, you needed either you just needed one a chassis. You either needed a Penske chassis back in 1978, 1979. You needed a Offenhauser or a something like that. But it wasn't until like the early 80s that that Ford Cosworth came up with their engine, and um, subsequently came about because the Cosworth DFX back in was a huge step forward, and it offered 800 horsepower. Obviously, the stock block rules would allow, if you wanted more power but you didn't have a heck of a lot of money, you could run a stock block V6 or a V8 or a 4-cylinder or whatever, and it offered you a little bit more boost um, than your engine, because most off-the-shelf engines didn't run very very well, and it gave you a shot. That's the reason why Buick and it's the reason why Buick and um, ran there. So and stuff like that. And then eventually, they kept with the 265, and then in the 90s it went. Well, Chevrolet introduced the 265 Ilmor engine, and Chevrolet Ilmor, and then eventually that exploded into Ford and Chevrolet, and then eventually the stock block thing ended that. So, but but this hybrid system that they have, they've noticed that it works better on the road courses than it does on the ovals, because the ovals you rely on draft and aerodynamics and stuff like that, versus top speed. So yeah, I think it'll be an interesting weekend. So all right. So I'll see you guys later. Yeah, Indy's gonna definitely be an interesting um, one this week. So I'm definitely gonna watch the St. Petersburg race, and it'll be a fun one. So peace out, every guys, and I hope you enjoyed this. Good night.